Psalm 119, Day 17. Wiser than my enemies. We'll be reading today from Psalm 119, verses 97 through 104. Oh, how I love your law! It is my meditation all the day. Your commandment makes me wiser than my enemies, for it is ever with me. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for your testimonies are my meditation. I understand more than the aged, for I keep your precepts. I hold back my feet from every evil way in order to keep your word. I do not turn aside from your rules, for they have taught me. How sweet are your words to my taste, sweeter than honey to my mouth. Through your precepts I get understanding. Therefore I hate every false way. Our thoughts today center around verse 98. Your commandments make me wiser than my enemies, for it is ever with me. In order to join Mensa, it's a Latin word that means table, you must score in the top 2% of the general population. To find out if you qualify to be considered for Mensa, you must first take an approved standardized test to determine your intelligence. What they are looking for is your IQ, or intelligence quotient, and it is defined by a number. Without going into great detail in such a controversial area, simply put, these tests measure your ability to reason and use logic to solve problems. If you are in Mensa, don't write to criticize me over this oversimplification, okay? Obviously, I don't qualify. Now, there's another way of measuring the use of our brains, and that's called wisdom. Actually, if you want to know more about the many ways of wisdom, read Solomon's book of Proverbs, especially the first 9 chapters. But let's focus on wisdom for a few minutes. How is it measured? As you might have guessed, there are tests one can take to measure wisdom as well. But we won't go there, having already come close to the yawning quota with IQ tests. But here's a definition I heard many years ago that compares knowledge and intelligence to wisdom. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. There, now you know the difference. Wasn't that easy? Now let's talk about getting wisdom. Solomon said in Proverbs 4 and verse 5, "Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forget and do not turn away from the words of my mouth." In Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 7, the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, and whatever you get insight. Proverbs 16:16, Solomon tells us, "How much better to get wisdom than gold? To get understanding is to be chosen rather than silver." Now we know that getting wisdom is at the top of the list. But where do we get it? Fortunately, the author of Psalm 119 tells us, God's commandment. But he goes one step further and tells us, "For it is ever with me." Wisdom is knowing God's commandment and keeping it near us always. That is found in a daily diet of God's Word. Jesus told his disciples, "Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Beware of men, for they will deliver you over to courts and flog you in their synagogues." Matthew 10:17. Over and over, we are commanded to beware. God's Word helps us to know who our enemies are, even when they masquerade as angels of light, as Paul says in 2 Corinthians 11:14. Being smart will get you in some doors, but wisdom is far better. So keep God's Word close and be wise in your walk today. How valuable is wisdom to you? Lord willing, we'll see you again tomorrow.